Welcome, everybody, to this week's episode of the podcast. I'm excited to have on this guest, Sean. Sean, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Hey, thanks for having me, Travis. Good to be here with you. Looking forward to this.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to this since I think we first virtually met, and this is actually our first time meeting. Those that are watching or listening, we've had some emails back and forth, and I've been following Sean's page on IG for a little while now, and respect the work that he's doing and
Thank
how
you.
he, yeah, how you, sorry, not he, you, we're talking how you put things in perspective and make us think about what we're doing as parents, and even specifically when I think of myself as a dad and maybe other dads are like, hey, how do I reach my teen? How do I connect on these topics on discipline or teaching or emotions? And I mean, so many things that you hit. And you
Thank
do it
you.
with grace, I think. So well
Thank
done.
you. Yeah, man. Yeah, I'm really just a regular old Joe. I've been married for 20 years to my wife, Danielle. My kids are 18, 14, and 7. And I love making these videos to try to help people, inspire them, bring support and new creativity and tools using just like everyday language, that regular men like myself use. And it's been a wild ride, man. It's been fun. I really enjoy it. Enjoy it.
Yeah. And 18 and then down to 7. So you got a range, a span
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, we like
And
to
I
take spaces. I've been raising babies for a freaking long time. It's like, yeah, when you space your kids out, there's perks to it. But one of the perks is, I've been having to do that bedtime routine for 18 years straight now. So still in it, 7 years old, still doing it. And
yeah.
so I'm not that far away from just like having some more, chill time and peace and quiet at nighttime. But yeah, love the kids and happy to be here, man.
Yeah. And my kids, if you don't know, I mine are not spaced. So
Yeah.
spaciously, I got 6, 4, and 2. So it's
Six,
like
4, and 2.
dominoes. So you talk about sleep. I'm definitely in that sleep
Yeah.
time.
Oh my gosh, that is
I would
tough.
say
Yeah. Six,
um,
4, and 2. I don't know which one would be harder. It'd be depends
they
on
they
the
both
US.
have
That's
pros, right? They both have pros
sure.
and
Yeah.
difficulties. I would say, and
Oh my
stressors that are
gosh. Yeah. Yeah.
so.
Nobody ever told us how hard parenting was going to be. That's partly why we're listening to this podcast and we're on this podcast right now because, we need support and tools and happy
Yeah,
to have to be a positive voice
yeah.
on this podcast, on your podcast, the Integrated Man Project. And so, yeah, man, let's talk.
Let's talk, man. So, could you share a bit with us kind of, you've been doing this, your kind of project, your process, your coaching for the past, I think, 10 or 11 years. Kind of,
Yeah.
can you give us a quick snippet of what got you into it and why you want to be a family coach and work with
Oh
parents
yeah, I
and
love
teens?
telling this story. Yeah, the people never ask me this except for on podcasts now. It's like not,
Uh,
sometimes my new friends will ask me, but long story short, man, is I was that 20-year-old college kid who had to pay his way through college, and I had to get an after school program. I had to get a job to put myself through college. So I got a job at UC Santa Barbara's after school program where I was hanging out with kids like after school. And I was throwing dodgeballs at their heads and helping them with their homework. And I was like, man, this is like really good. Like, this is really interesting. Like, I really feel like drawn to
mm,
helping these children and being a positive support. And one thing led to another. And my friend, she was like, hey, Sean, you'd be really a good mentor. I'm like doing this mentorship with teenagers. You should do it with us. It's called this awesome group called Young Life. So I
mm,
did that. And now I'm working with children to get money and I'm like mentoring teenagers. And I just like this thing came over my life. I was doing stand-up comedy at the time and I was planning on moving to Hollywood, being a comedy writer. And I was having a
mm,
lot of success doing on stage. And I have a whole book of jokes and anecdotes. And I was very serious about writing. And I just felt like this is not what I'm supposed to do with my life. I'm supposed to do something with children.
mm.
And so I had a child, got married, had a child, and there was this TV show called The Super Nanny on. And I'm 45, so you may not remember that show. It was highly popular about 18 years ago. Do you remember that by any chance?
I don't. I'm
Yeah,
not
it's
that
all
much younger
good.
than you, but
Yeah, it was
I'm
a
close. I'm
first of its
39.
kind like reality TV. This English lady named Joe, she would go into the homes of these like chaotic American homes and she would kind of connect with the children and then give the parents parent coaching. And I kind of turned to my wife and I said, this is like a really creative idea. Like I should do that. And then
Mm,
I had to grow up first. I had to learn a lot. I had to do a lot of education, a lot of maturing. And so yeah, about 11 years ago, I started this firm and I was like, all right, I'm going to be like a male in this space, which is normally dominated by women. And now here we are on your podcast. Yep.
Yeah. You know what? Now that I think about it, I feel like I've seen that show because you said a British lady, and
Yeah.
I remember seeing episodes of that now that I think about it. So
Yeah, man, classic purple power suit, and she did a lot of stuff I don't believe in, but they rebranded it to like 9911. So yeah, now I just mostly work with parents from all around the country and the world from my home office, but I spent many years, and my team still does that, going to people's homes,
oh,
into
wow.
the mess, into the grind, into the messiness and the chaos, and doing just like you see on TV. And
Wow.
and now we just mostly do it through Zoom. I do, but yeah, it's fun. It's fun.
Yeah. No, and I like, being in the environment, right? Versus coming to an office. I'm assuming how much more you would see spending time in the actual environment,
Dude,
watching and
seeing
kind
so
of,
much crazy stuff. Seeing
I
some
mean,
wild
I'm
stuff,
sure.
man. Well, seeing a lot of stuff. Got a lot of stories. Still got my staff. They're still going to people's homes. And yeah, it's very intimate. And we could make a whole podcast episode of just ask me some of the like top 10 crazy stuff I've seen in people's
Yeah.
homes. That'd be a fun one.
Yeah, I'm sure. My question for you with kind of all the work you've been doing and think about, you know, where what you were doing 11 years ago with this kind of parenting coaching to today, like what is some of the what's one of the biggest things that parents are coming to you now looking for help in with their
Mm.
kids?
Well, two things that come off the mind for me. The first one is screens. I mean, screens is like the parenting battle of our generation. But on a really positive note, is like here you are, you're a young dad, you're a highly trained, gifted professional, and you're helping other men. So the one of the other things that comes to mind is there's a lot of parents out there that have like
Mhm.
a growth mindset towards parenting.
Mm,
It's like they're open to, reading books, watching videos, joining a membership, and like they feel like they're not threatened by it. It's okay to say, I don't have this
mm,
all figured out. My parents didn't give me the best tools, or it's okay to say, I don't want to parent the way they parented, and I don't know what to do then. And so that's just like really exciting. Like I like to say, especially for men, this is like we're like a new generation of man.
mm.
Essentially, we're redefining what a good dad is, what good masculinity is, and what good husbandry is. And we're doing it right now. And we're kind of doing it on this podcast, even as we speak. So
Yeah.
that is like very exciting. So, yeah, we could talk about doom and gloom and screens and anything you want negative, and I can help you with that. But that's on a more positive note stuff I kind of nerd out on.
Yeah, with that, it's interesting, and I agree that we're in a season and an era of life where I think a lot of people are coming, and I'm wondering what the men you're seeing coming to you. What you mentioned, kind of they're open and not taking offense or threatened by, hey, read a
Hmm.
book or watch a video.
Yeah.
Has there been a big shift over the past 11 years of doing the work? Has it always kind of been there? What you're seeing
Oh, it's
guys coming to
totally
you?
changed in the last
Okay.
11 years. There's so many more men. I mean, I have a lot of men clients now, but it used to be, you know, close to 90%. It was the
Mm,
women instigating it. Now we have a lot of men instigating this. And
mm,
I've got, and so, yeah, it's a very exciting time because I just think if you really, you don't have to look that far because all the resources we have on YouTube, social media, podcasts to see that there's a different world out there than how you
mm,
were raised as a child. Like there's do's and don'ts. There's good parents, there's bad parents, there's shady stuff that we
mhm,
should not do to our kids. And there's good things we can do to our kids, and there's
mhm,
good ways to manage our emotions and bad ways. And it's all there. Just like there is good ways to do plumbing and there's bad ways to do plumbing. There's good ways to do lawn care and there's bad ways. Like there's so much knowledge out there. It's accessible at our very hands. It's just cool to be a part of that.
yeah, and seeing that you're seeing the shift, I think it is very promising to see the shift from even 10, 11 years ago, which is not that long.
No, it's not.
Going from
It's
like
really not.
90% moms or females coming to you, now
Yeah.
having more men, more dads, even instigating it is very, very promising to hear. Because I think some of our cultural narrative is still, how much really how stuck men kind of are. But to hear that,
Mhm.
it's like you're actually seeing that a lot of men are actually wanting change and
Yeah.
seeing that they need to grow and, you know?
Yeah. Let me ask you two questions on that same point, if I may.
Yeah.
Have you seen any change in the last 10 years? And then from your perspective as like a therapist, why do you think men get so stuck in like reaching out for help or feeling like, like admitting you don't have this all figured out? Like I know that's
Hmm.
two questions at once, but if I may, what do you think about that?
Yeah, great question as well. And what I've seen in 10 years of doing therapy, I mean, 9 years, so close to 10, 9 years, I think a lot of the barriers for men are still kind of the same that they've been that I've noticed even 9 years ago. And even what the researchers said, I think a lot of men still struggle with the societal expectations of what it means to be a man. And you said, we're working on what it means to be a masculine man or
Mhm.
you said husbandry, great word. I think a lot of men are still, I think, afraid and in fear of still seeking help and what that might mean to what it means to be a quote unquote man,
Yeah, yeah,
even to this day. Yeah, I
yeah.
do see men coming to me absolutely and sticking with me. But when I ask
Mhm.
them, I think they still had to overcome that barrier of how people might perceive them
Yeah,
as being a strong man or a weak man or being a man, and how men should just have it figured out, not being seen as weak. Because if I come for help, I'm weak, and that's not good, right? So I think a lot of men
right.
still have that as initial barrier to
For
even come, even to
sure.
this day. Like I'm
Yeah,
thinking of a week or two ago of
right,
that's what they said is like, yeah, I don't want to be seen as weak. I don't want to be seen
right.
as not a man. And I think a lot of men have a narrowed view of what it means to be a man, very kind of boxed in. It
Yeah,
must
yeah.
look like this only,
Mhm, mhm.
which is like the classic overly stoic, not showing a lot of emotional vulnerability.
Totally.
Anger is kind of okay, but sadness,
Yeah, man. Yeah,
frustration, confusion, not okay. It's like the man code, the man box. And so
for
to
sure.
this day, even 9 years ago, it's, I think, pretty consistent. I might be seeing more men come in, but I think they're still fighting some of that initial
Yeah, man.
fear, so to speak.
I don't blame him because I was raised in a alpha male society of sports and beach
Hmm.
culture of San Diego. If you think back to the movies that really shaped my childhood, we're talking, violent action movies of guns and suck it
Point
up
Break.
and sports and yeah, well, Point Break, yeah, that's a good one. That's funny. Point Break. Yeah, and so you didn't have this model on the screen, but also many of us didn't have this, you know, any type of nurtured either by our own mothers or our
Mm.
fathers. And so that's, how I grew up. And so it didn't really make sense to me. Then I'm married and my wife's asking me to share my feelings or to do X, Y, and Z. It's like, what are you talking about? Like, how do I even do that? So I definitely wasn't raised the way that I teach and portray myself on camera. And now that how I am a husband and parent. So yeah, this is why it's so exciting because we're just having a lot
Mm.
of men being like, you know what, I'm ready. I'm ready to
Yeah.
put in the same type of open-mindedness and growth mindset that I have towards my career, towards my
Yep.
hobbies, into what I think is the most important thing, which is our family, our
Yeah.
the impact we have on our children and loving them and having them grow up in healthy homes.
Yeah. Interesting you said your model for emotionality or emotional intelligence or just emotions in general. I think that's another key thing that I see a lot of men why they don't initially come to my doors for therapy is really emotions are a threat that I've seen,
Yeah.
especially anything other than like maybe anger or
Right.
aggression
Yeah.
or dominance
Yeah.
or strength. And I think strength narrowly viewed, but any type of sadness, confusion. And so if I feel this, I think their primary way of coping with any distressing or difficult emotions is to avoid, to run, to numb, to get
No doubt.
aggressive,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so, and then what happens while they come in is that stuff isn't working for them anymore. And they're
Mhm.
seeing
Mhm.
issues in their marriages or their relationships, or they're not performing at work as much as they used to, or
Right.
now they're having panic attacks or something else is happening. And so
Yeah.
they come to me and it's because
They've had
emotions again, a
enough.
threat.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They're
because
in
if I was
pain.
raised in a hyper sports culture or don't feel just be strong, it's like I couldn't feel those things there. Those weren't allowed to be expressed or safe because I was shamed or told not to be a wuss or a bunch of other
For sure. For years and
words.
years and years, right? That's a
Yeah.
lot of imprinting on an everyday man. And then you start, and this is kind of funny and kind of sad. This is kind of funny that it's really hard to be a modern day man because and father because if you try to use that old school style of parenting, your wife is probably not going to let you do that anymore.
No.
And she's going to be like, well, I'm watching this videos, or well, you need to watch this guy's videos, or you need
Yeah.
therapy. And then the
Yeah.
man is like, what? Like, I'm a
Mhm.
freaking man. Like, I'm the dad. We got to teach our kids to be
Right.
tough. You're so
Yeah.
soft. So she's doing her nurturing, fostering side. And then he's coming out with the strong side. And then she's telling him, you can't be a parent. And then in some cases, he doesn't do anything then because he doesn't know
Right.
what to do. Well, if I
Right.
can't parent this way, the way I was parented, well, then I'm going to end up not being a parent at all. And then they fight and they argue, and it's a very solvable problem. We just need really good tools.
Yep.
and there's ways of doing this. Yeah.
And I think with that, I think they tend to get more shamed because they're doing what they know. And I'm generalizing here. They tend to do what they know. And so now I'm being told what I'm doing is not enough. And I probably already feel not enough as a man or as a failure, but I
For
don't show that
sure.
because I can't show
Right.
that. So it
Oh,
creates this catch 22 of,
yeah.
you know,
Super common. Yeah,
yeah.
it does. And then they end up doing less. Yeah. What I think another way I think has grown in the last 10 years, especially for younger dads, is there's just a lot more kind of like victim mentality where like people
Mm.
now, because of the resources we have, we know so much more about trauma, for example. Like
Yep.
I don't specialize in trauma, but I've taught classes on it. I'm very aware of it, trauma informed. And so I can take that as a parent and I can choose now to realize, okay, let's say I've been through some trauma. My parents traumatized me, which yeah, definitely was true. And so, okay, but I have to choose. Am I going to be a victor or am I going to be a victim? And I don't really work with these men and that choose to be a victim. And the reason I don't work with them is because they don't call me because they're
Yeah.
sitting in that victimhood, right?
Right.
So
Right.
I've
Right.
only know about them, but I don't see them face to face because
Right.
they're not stepping out and saying, I'm sick of being a victim. I'm sick of thinking this way and just thinking I have no control over my life and my circumstances. I'm going to sit in this. You know that you're moving out of that when you start reaching out for help, when you start talking to yourself, talking to your friends, talking to your loved ones and spouses about it.
Yeah, and I agree with that too. That the trauma stuff, and I'm actually trained in trauma and have some expertise in that. And I think a lot of it is I think it's unconscious survival mechanisms
So
of to
unconscious.
survive. So it's to even recognize it sometimes is hard to see it,
Yeah, they don't see
um,
it. Yeah,
because it's
it'll
like
yeah.
I've always had to do this. I've always had to.
Always. It's normal. There's
It's
no other
normal.
way.
There's no other
It's
way, and so it's like anything
yeah.
else almost seems so foreign. Of like, why would I
Yeah.
reach out for help? Because when I
Right.
reached out for help before,
It doesn't make
ex
sense.
I was explicitly shamed or
Yeah.
told horrible things, or
Yeah.
implicitly, or I was hit, or I was
Right.
rejected, or so I've learned when I was like since 5 years old or whatever, that never doing that again. And so
Mhm.
I think those guys unfortunately get so stuck because they're kind of stuck in that cycle of the fear. But it
Yeah.
makes sense
It
given
totally makes sense. Makes logical sense.
it made
But
so
it's
much
just
sense.
it
It's
makes
sad
so
though.
much sense to them. So yeah, I have my podcast, the Sean Donohue Show. We're doing something creative tomorrow morning on our
Hmm.
episode. I don't know what we're gonna call it yet, but I think let me see where my notes are. But I'm gonna do some storytelling from my own childhood, and my buddy Jordan's gonna do some storytelling, and we're gonna try to help our listeners see how easily our bad experiences from our childhood or even our childhood traumas can actually sneak into our
Right.
parented thinking and our parented
Totally.
actions. And we're just going to do it because, it's just so hard for people to have these light bulbs come on. Like, but when those light bulbs come on, that's very exciting and it can be
Yep.
very freeing. Then you got to do something about it. But that's what we're going to do tomorrow morning. I don't know how it's going to go because we're just going to, but I'm excited about it. Yeah.
No, that sounds like it's gonna be a great episode. I think having more of those light bulb moments, and I think another reason I wanted you on is having other men, and you said this earlier at the beginning of the episode that I think in this space of healing, mental wellness, parenting space, it
Yeah.
is more dominated by women. And I say that not negatively, but I say that we need more men
Yeah.
to be a model for other men
Yeah,
to come
man.
in
Yeah.
and to kind of say, hey, let's equal this out by seeing. And I think hearing other men's stories, if I'm a dad listening, it's like I could resonate. Oh, that's what Sean went through, or man, I had that experience, or that sounds a lot like
So
mine. And
true.
so it starts
Right.
to, because we change by our stories, it pulls us
Yeah.
in, and
I
hearing these
know.
stories,
Right.
it kind of opens a door to say, well, hey, they were vulnerable, they just shared
Yeah.
that. It starts to kind of plant that seed.
Stories.
Yeah.
I think we could talk all day about the power of stories, even like how do we become the way we are? You
Mm,
could even say we came that way because of the stories. The
mm,
stories that we played out, the movies that we watched, the books were such a
yep.
primarily this is what it means to be a man. And it's
Hmm.
still happening right now because that's what Hollywood is really putting out there. Like, what is a strong man? If you ask 10 men, probably you're going to get, I don't know, somewhere around 9 to 10 is going to say something like, a man has muscles, maybe
Hmm.
tattoos, guns, strong money. They're strong. They have obedient kids. And that's not,
Mm.
who says that's a strong man? Like, what is a really good, strong man? And is yes, 10 people, you're going to get 10 different responses. And I think it's
Yeah.
just like exciting time though, because we're redefining what a strong man and a strong dad really
Yeah.
is.
And I think that's needed. We need to have a somewhat of a working definition, because if we don't know what maybe a mature, healthy, holistic man dad is,
Right.
because we could all
Right.
point to what's, the toxic quote, right?
Right.
Traits. We know what that is. But and I think you're right. One of my old professors who does a lot of back in grad school, who does a lot of research in this area of men and masculinities, 20 plus years of research. I'm actually doing like research, says that
Okay.
that's the part of the problem, is that we can't clearly define what it means to be a good, strong, healthy,
Yeah,
holistic
it's
man.
true. Yeah,
We
it's
know what it
true.
is not to be, and
Yeah.
that's easy to define. But to
Well, yeah,
define
that's
something
what the
that's good,
scholars, but that's just, yeah, that's people who have, some research and
yeah,
some knowledge of that. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. But who is, yeah, it's going to be, yeah, obviously it's going to be a constant battle because
yeah,
Hollywood and books are always going to keep putting out of this version of man because we like that version of man because there's some really good stuff. Here's
totally.
something I've been thinking about recently too. Like, you know what? If I think of a really strong man, you know what I think of? I would never want to be a police officer, Travis. Like,
Yeah,
that sounds really hard. Would you want to be a cop?
no,
Like,
not right now.
it sounds really hard to be a cop. And then now to be a cop today,
Hmm.
it's like everyone's watching you, everyone's pulling off their phone and videotaping you. It's like you can't be a cop like like the movies of the 90s or even the
Hmm.
2000s. You've got to like they're like redefining what it means to protect and serve. But
Yeah.
here's what I've noticed, that if you look closely, you'll actually see this, that a lot of the videos you'll see of police officers now are very positive. And if you actually listen to how this officer is talking to the person they're dealing with, here's the theme that I'm seeing. Okay, the person they're dealing with is not like in a good spot. Either because they're
Hmm.
trying to provoke the cop. Like I like some of those videos when like these guys walk into like these government facilities and they're just trying to get a fight. They're trying to get people riled up. And then this
Yeah.
side comes, you need to leave this building. He's like, oh, this is my amendment rights to be in this building. I'm like, well, why are you here? What's your name? What's your name? I'm not telling you my
Yeah.
name. It's like they're
Yeah.
just bother. You see these videos? They're
Yeah.
bothering, or you're in the inner cities and they're just disrespecting the cops. And what do the cops do? Well, in a lot of ways, how these cops are showing up is they're really showing up as really amazing parents. Now,
Yeah.
they're not parenting these people, but like, what are good parents? Well, parents are highly emotionally, good parents are highly emotionally regulated. They have
Mm.
boundaries. They don't join the circus. They're
Mm.
there to sometimes diffuse a situation. So our officers have to take a ton of training on diffusing skills,
Hmm.
on not using force or not using their power to try to help someone who doesn't want helping. And I'm describing parenthood right now, right? This is
Hmm.
like everyday parenting. How do we use our words wisely to diffuse
Yeah.
our children, to connect with them, to not use our power, to emotion coach them? And so, yeah, props to all the officers out there and the first responders who are taking a gazillion hours of training per year on this stuff and actually using it
Yeah.
for good, for really emotional, deregulated people out there in the real world. So thank you to everybody.
Yeah. No, I agree. And it's a good analogy of, the what it means to be a parent is that, all those things just laid out, is that emotion coaching, being calm, cool, and collected, being not getting in the circus, but standing back. Because I think sometimes as parents and even men, how easy it is to kind of get that tipping point of frustration
Mm.
and adherence and my way, and you need to listen. It's not like that step into that world is not like a big step. It's really small if you think about it. In
Yeah,
fact,
yeah.
I have found myself in that state of stepping into that at times. And when I look at what's driving that, is often
Hmm.
when I reflect, when I've had those moments, it's often fear. It's often
It's
I feel
always
helpless as a
fear. It's
dad,
fear. Yeah.
and I really want to help, but I don't know what to do. And so
It's,
I'm reaching, even though I
yeah,
know the
man.
skills, but I still have those moments, and I'm like, hold on, Trav,
Yeah.
like, wait, these skills, take a step back. It's not, slow down, but it's not a far leap, even for a trained
Mhm.
clinician to get to that
Yeah,
space
man.
of trying to dominate and get in the circus and get lost. Cause we've seen those videos too of those cops who get in the circus and they
Hmm.
get lost and they get riled up.
And they're
Cause
in big trouble. Yeah. Yeah.
it's a tiny step, right?
Yeah. Yeah. You make it sound like you sound like my clients right now, or you sound like me, and I'm going to sound like my clients. You make that sound easier than it actually is. Yeah. For sometimes I agree it's a tiny step just to pick a fight with you.
True.
Me personally, yeah, it's not always a tiny step. I mean,
True, true.
especially if
It's
you're
not.
amazed. I know we're on the same page. I mean, imagine if you were raised by a military or cop or even a fireman. I've got some of my best friends are firefighters. These are highly structured men,
Yep.
highly organized, highly disciplined. And so, they think in a world of like more black and whites and submitting to their authorities. And that's what they've been trained. And some of
Yep.
them have been even traumatized. And so, and
Yep.
we were raised by some of these parents, men and women, who were just trained us that we were just supposed to obey. Otherwise
Mhm.
we get the chancla, we get yelled at, we get punished, we get sent to boarding school. There's nothing I can do to help you obey. You just have to obey. And so now it's quite a shift in some ways to learn how to, okay, I can't force this child to obey. Well, I can, but do I want
Mhm.
to? Why do I want
Yeah.
to? What if I don't? What does that mean? Am I a bad parent? My kid's going to become a loser? Like if I
Mm.
don't make them obey, what do I do? How can I get this kid to brush their teeth or to stop picking on their sister? Like emotion coaching them. I think this is why people are listening to this podcast, because it's so important. This work's so important to move away from that military style, parenting that some of us grew up with.
Yeah. Yeah, my dad was actually in the Navy, so I know.
Oh, he was.
Yeah.
Would
I know.
he? All right. Let me ask you some questions. So, what was that like? What kind of parent was he? Did he parent you like he was like you were in the Navy too?
That would come out. That wasn't 24/7, but there was definitely times that would come out when I just wouldn't know why things like the logic. It was just like,
Okay.
just must do this. And I
Yeah.
remember as a kid, cleaning my room was always a big thing, and my
Okay.
room being clean and bed made and things put away,
Right.
very
Yeah.
organized.
Yeah.
And
Military people
um,
freak out over that stuff, man.
mhm,
They're nerd out. It's like you're a loser of a kid if you don't have a clean room. That's how they
yeah,
think.
that
Yeah.
was a big one. The room was every day was a big one. I remember a couple times he's like, "It's not clean yet," and I'm looking at the room, and I don't know, I'm probably like in junior high, and I'm like,
Oh, dude,
I don't
that's
know, man. The room
tough.
looks pretty clean. He's like,
Right.
"Well, let me know when you figure it out." And I'm sitting there, I'm like, "I don't know.
Oh,
Everything's clean."
oh
And
my
now
gosh.
we have a great relationship now. He's done a lot of work and grown
Okay.
a lot, and we've done a lot of reconciliation. And he looks
Yeah.
back, he's like, Trav, I don't know. I don't know what I was thinking.
Oh, he
So he can
says
look
that.
back
That's
and say,
cool.
"Yeah, that probably wasn't the best
Yeah.
thing I did." I think he's like, "I was trying to help, but looking back now, he's like, I don't think that was very effective." So,
I have a big
uh,
section in my book about like type A, clean freak, military types. And I try to use humor to get through to them
yeah,
about
yeah.
how like, you might going to reconsider this whole concept of all your tidiness and cleanness. And you would think
Yep.
of all these clean freaks. I would say Navy people, they've got to be at the top. If you're in a submarine or a tiny ship, you got those
Mhm.
nice white collars like they had in Top Gun.
Mhm.
They're all about that hygiene and that clean cutness versus the other people who, are rolling around the dirt, right?
Mhm.
Navies.
Yeah, it was, yeah, I had those moments, and he's come a long way, and he's loosened way a bit. I mean, so different than he was when I was younger. I mean,
Hmm.
the I think the immature parts, there was obviously good parts with him, but the stuff that was really difficult, he's really shifted. And thinking with the guys you're talking, some of the dads now, what did you think is when they think of their, coming to be a dad or a parent, what do you think their number one struggle is for them, like coming to you working on this whole parenting thing of being a good dad? What do you think is like the big barrier for them? Or what do you think, if you were to have them define what it means to be a good dad, is that easy for them to define? Is it difficult? Like,
First thing that I thought of, because there's a lot of different ways we can answer that question, and I want to ask you the same thing. What do you think of? What's a big barrier you see or a challenge you see men? I'll go first, and then you go. Does that sound
sure.
okay?
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Yeah, I think the first thing that I thought of is the word impulse,
Mm,
impulses. And let me tell you why I think it's in my work, with my kind of processes, I have these terminologies that I teach my clients. They're pretty basic terms. One is called buttons.
mm,
They like, instead of just saying I'm triggered or this kid's making me mad or angry or I'm frustrated or this kid's pushing my buttons, I help my clients to really get to know themselves. Like
yep.
what is really going on inside of you. Partly why I think my videos might be a little unique that I make on social media and my podcast is because I spend a lot of time on helping parents to ace the mindset game of
Hmm.
parenting. How you think about certain things. Because if you don't have the right thoughts, well, then you're going to be pushing your own button. You're making yourself emotional. Like you want to let somebody that cuts you off drive you nuts, go for it. You want to
Mm,
let an 11-year-old dude who's got like a little peach fuzz on his upper lip, like Cockroach from the Cosby Show or Theo. You want to let him, he doesn't wear deodorant, drive you nuts? Well, then go for it. Do it. You want
Mm,
to let a salty 17-year-old girl, or a whiny 6-year-old child drive you nuts? Well, then do it. Go for it. It's a
mhm,
free country. But you don't need to do that. Like, they're children. There's different ways of setting emotional boundaries in our minds. And
mm,
so, but the issue at hand though is, we all have our impulses. In parenting, you said the word powerless about 5 minutes ago. To thrive in parenting, you've got to really understand power and how
mm,
powerful you are. We are so freaking powerful. We can use that power for good or for evil, for
yeah,
positive impact and negative. But also, what parenting is really about, because I don't think parenting is never about what it's really about. It's, you got to look under the surface. A huge part of parenting is feeling powerless, especially as your kids get older. Every
yeah,
day that passes, you're going to probably feel more and more powerless.
mhm,
So, what is good parenting? Well, one of the ways of I think you would define good parenting is your relationship with powerlessness. Right? How do you
mm,
feel when things don't go your way? When your kid won't, get in the car to be on school on time, or your teenager doesn't open up to you, or they're not getting off the Fortnite game, they're playing too much of Minecraft. It's like powerness. That's where the impulses are going to come in. Whether we're going to be impulse to snap and yell and command and control, shame, name call, chonkla, punish, yell, lecture, pep talk, or avoid, drink, people please,
mm,
rescue, passivity,
mhm,
avoidance, stonewalling, all
yeah.
these things. We were all dealing with our impulses because parenting is so emotional.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with that. It is so emotional, and it's some of the most button pressing things we'll ever do. And I
Yeah.
think being a parent now, I realize really the work you're constantly faced with. It's I give the analogy a lot of clients I work with like becoming a parent too is it's like competing at like a playoff match level every day,
It
and
really
you're
is.
expected to
I know.
perform
I
at
know.
peak performance
Oh
every
my
single
gosh.
day.
You
And
are.
so
I know.
and so then like
Otherwise, or else what? Or else your wife's
uh,
going to let you know.
right.
Like,
Or your kids will let you know because
or your
you're
kids.
getting mad or you have low
Mhm.
impulse control yourself or
Yeah.
low frustration tolerance
Right.
or you said some things too. You're drinking more, you're tuning out more,
Yeah.
you're doing something else because if you're not taking care of yourself and
Yeah.
but you're expected to perform, it's going to be really taxing. And
Yeah.
I like what you said to answer kind of reversing back what I hear a lot of guys is that a lot of guys I kind of go into their story of, how they got to where they are today and listening to their story as a kid. What was it like in
Mhm.
your home? What
Yeah.
emotions were allowed? What was not allowed? What was it like in relation with your father or mother if they're around at all? And how does
Yeah.
that impact you now? And like becoming aware of when you are that button is pushed now and frustration. What are you actually frustrated about? What just came up for you?
What's
Was it
actually
just
right?
that your kid didn't brush their teeth, or
Exactly.
was it that, but 20 other things with that
Mhm.
similar emotional response or feeling of powerlessness that came up and now you're trying to fight against that feeling powerless as a kid and now you're trying to fight it and control because you don't want to feel powerless again. It's like, so what is this really about?
Yeah,
And
man.
I think
Yeah.
that you hit the nail on the head when I heard that. I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, absolutely. It's
Yeah.
about something deeper under the hood.
Under the hood. And that's why you can just, for anyone listening to this, I just want you to have hope.
Yeah.
You can
Yeah.
grow in mindfulness. You can grow in self control. You're an
Hmm.
amazing, powerful man. You can do all that and more. It might take
Yeah.
some time. You could lose 10 pounds if you wanted. You could gain 20 pounds if you like. You can do whatever you set your mind to nowadays. It's incredible. The mind is so powerful. And yeah, it might take some time and some work and maybe take some therapy or some work on yourself. But yeah, it's just an amazing time to be a parent. It's just an amazing time.
Yeah. A couple more questions and we'll start to wrap up. I'm thinking when you think of when you think of a dad and the dad you're working with, because you're coaching them and it's funny when you're doing parenting coaching, my guess is you're doing the inner work for them for sure with these guys, right? These dads and helping them, like you said, understand themselves, get to know them, which then because you could teach them the tools of, parenting and coaching, but
Yeah.
my guess if you leave
Yeah.
out the inner work of them, that those
Yeah,
tools are
man.
going to fall flat, right? Is my guess.
Yeah, one of the ways to just kind of saying what you just said, one of the ways that I help dads in the parenting realm is I teach them how to speak to themselves and how to speak to
Mm,
their kids, right? And see, that's kind of I tried to say the same thing you said there. Yeah, and
yeah,
and normally, if you really want to be the parent you really have always dreamed of being, you're going to have to learn how to speak well to both those people. because it's
Yeah.
just so parenting is just so annoying.
Oh yeah.
It's just constant annoyance and disappointment and pain and just constant moments of amazingness, right?
Oh yeah. It's
And
both.
amazing. It's just both.
It's
It's
both.
such a wild ride. I did not expect it to rock me this way, and nobody prepared me for this. That's for
Oh
sure.
yeah. I agree. Nothing. I read so many books on parenting in grad school and on child development, and then you become one. And you're like, oh,
Right.
I thought I was prepared because I
I
read
know.
and did things, and I'm like,
Right.
not
Yeah.
really. I mean, I was
Yeah.
to some degree, but there's a lot that I still am learning. I'm not done.
Yeah,
And
man.
going back to the dads real quick, like if what is the one thing, and there's probably more than one, I'm sure, but when you hear these guys' stories, because you do some of the inner work with them,
Hmm.
what's like
Hmm.
one of the big themes standing out that what do you think they needed most when they were kids that they didn't get from their parents? Or what do you think
Wow.
they needed more of that you
I think
hear
it's what
of
I
like,
needed.
ooh,
Yeah. I mean,
what was that?
my parents divorced when I was 11, and my dad lived in Northern California. I lived in Southern California after seventh grade, and he just really wasn't a part of my life at all.
Hmm,
And so I was just on my own, I had my mom and my stepdad and my buddies' parents. But what I think is the term, you can put a lot of different terms to it, but
sure.
the term that I like is emotion coaching.
Hmm,
Just somebody to just slow down and just spend a little bit of time. And time is great. Like I like fishing and sports and backpacking, and I would have appreciated that with my dad, some quality time. I enjoyed that with my stepdad. But just taking the time to say, hey, so how do you feel about that? Or why'd you do that? And
hmm,
just to process coaching, because what's interesting is that most men enjoy coaching their children in certain things.
hmm.
Normally, it's their own hobbies. Like my
Yep.
daughter's 7, she had her first basketball game, and I mean, I'm just freaking out with joy on the sideline. She went 0 for 1, and she dribbled the ball up a court a few times. She doesn't want to practice. We just seen that cutie pie out there with her jersey was a small, and it was like way too big for her. So she looked like Allen Iverson from like
Yeah, yeah.
1995. She's just rocking the over baggy.
Oh
And
yeah.
like
I have
I
an
mean,
image.
yeah, I'm just trying to
Yeah.
coach her in basketball. And there's something inside of all of us: mentorship, coaching,
Yeah.
teaching,
Mm,
power. And so just channel that
mm,
into emotion coaching your children. And then that's going to be hard because they're not going to maybe want to be coached, or they don't like your style. They might have to adapt. You got to parent the child you have, not the child you want. But it's always inside of us. This innate, thing is what I needed as a kid, and I think is what our today's kids need. They just need a parent to really show up and to coach them through. And this is why I think a lot of the problem with society is I think that you could actually change the world through good parenting. And if you look at the research too, that the men in our society who struggle the most often have the lack of good fatherly figures and good
mm.
and someone to mentor them. And this is actually very different than how humans have lived for centuries, depending on how old you think humans are, because it wasn't that long ago. If you were a young boy or a young girl, you'd be sitting around the campfire of your tribe, whether your tribe's in India, or England or China, or like mine were in Ireland. You're sitting around these campfires, or you're coming out of your huts for these communal events, and you got your uncles there, your aunts, you've got your godparents, your grandparents. It's communal living, and you're all sharing life, and you're not on
Mm,
screens, and you have mentors everywhere. You're literally like around people all the time.
yeah.
And that's how people lived for a very long time. We've only been living like this for a short period of time.
So mentorship, relationship, and I do agree. Like to change the world, we do need parents that have done some of their own healing to then pass it down to the next generation because that's we're raising the next generation. So
Yeah,
we're either going
man.
to pass down
Yeah.
similar hurts and wounds unknowingly, maybe even unintentionally, or we're going to pass down a healthier version, imperfectly so, but giving them something more to a little farther down the road that
Yeah,
our kids
buddy.
will carry on and go farther than us. And that's my
Yeah.
heart for my kids that, hey, I'm,
Yeah.
I'm doing things different and being a little healthier, a little, more,
Yeah.
integrated and say, here you go. Here's what I know. Now I know it's not perfect. I know,
Mm-hmm.
but I want
Mm-hmm.
you to take this and run with it and keep going
Yes.
for your kids. And then the
Yeah,
trickle
man.
down effect. And I do agree. The relationship, we need mentors. We need, I have a couple mentors I turn to and people that come to me. And I think how need that is to have.
Yeah.
And especially as men, I think, what does
Hmm.
it mean to be a man in our society? And how can we learn from the good of the past,
Yeah.
the good qualities of what it meant to be a man, as well as how do we grow from some of the
Yeah.
maybe rigid views, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And then how do we learn what it means to be a man in this society
Yeah.
or a dad in this society?
Right.
And how do we kind of evolve with how the world's evolving for the better?
Yeah, man.
Um,
I saw I've never told this story before, but I heard a well-known pastor say something that really struck me. He said something from the stage like this, like, "Hey, once you die, everyone's going to forget about you. You're dead. It's over."
mm,
And I was like, "What kind of speech is that? Like, aren't you like a pastor? Aren't you like supposed to inspire us?" And it was just kind of going off like, "Look, this is your life. Like, when you die, people might remember you for a little bit of time and they're going to move on." And I've
mm,
just been thinking about that a lot since I heard it like 2 years ago. And I think two things that come to mind, Travis. One is I think that's actually true. It really is
mm,
true. Like 99.99% of us, when we die, it's pretty much over. But I think that what's also true, and I think this is true for 99.99% of us, is that how I want to change the world is through these three kids that I have.
mm,
Because like just saying the same thing you said in a different way, I want to give them a healthy, happy home to grow up in. I want to
mm,
I want to give them something that I don't feel like I had, which is
yeah.
like two loving parents who care about them, who are coaching them, who are their cheerleaders, who are their mentors. And I want them to then pass that on to my grandchildren, who will
Mm,
then pass that on and pass that on and pass that on. And I think that's legit legacy. I
yeah.
think that my great grandkids are not going to be talking about me, but hopefully they'll be teaching their kids and parenting their kids in a way that I parented my kids. I think that's
Mm,
an actual possibility because we see that
mm,
with like generational cycles and negativity. We see that through stats even.
yeah.
And so I think we could see that in a really positive way. And that really like excites me.
I think so too. I think it excites me why obviously why you're doing your work and why I'm doing my work is that it's exciting to see that we can make a change and share this information with people and build a community of people really impacting change with the people around them and their kids. Because if I mean, just like the negative stuff, just like the painful things, why not be an advocate and doer of good, of healing, of health, of restoration, right, of integration, of restoring relationships that were once broken, if when and where possible, if we can. I know
Hmm.
sometimes we don't always have that opportunity, at least with the
Hmm.
previous generation, but we can work on that with our current and the next generation.
We sure can.
Um,
And we haven't, and then it's also exciting. Like, we're going to be grandparents one day, hopefully,
yeah,
some of us. I know, I think I will. Like, that's so exciting. I'm
yeah,
probably going to be more influential to my grandkids. I might be more influential to my grandkids than to my own children. Like, it
yeah,
is like a long game of living the human experience of influence and love
hmm,
and
yeah,
power and teaching. Like, this is so exciting.
yeah. I think so too. I'm stoked, and I'm stoked that you're stoked. Couple final wrap up questions. One, when you hear, if I were to say to be an integrated man, what do you hear? What do you think it means to be integrated as a man?
Ooh, integration, I think of like, like a tapestry of like really getting in deep and
Hmm,
accumulating and getting dialed in to a really healthy system. So an integrated man seems like he's really thought this through. He's thought his life through. He doesn't like live in the components, but he's learned how to bring all these little things together for harmony and like and goodness. That's what I could think of.
yeah.
What about you? What are you thinking?
Something I've been working through from just training and just professionally as well as my own personal development is being integrated, is being aware of myself first and foremost, kind of aware of my mind, my body, my soul, kind of where what's coming up for me in the moment. And then being able to be effective. Being effective in that moment, being able to
Effective.
take that awareness
That's
to
good.
be connected to myself, be
Mhm.
connected to my kids, to my wife, to
That's
my
good.
coworkers, to so it's like the relational in between integration. I'm connected to you. I'm
Yeah,
connected to
man.
Sean or whoever in front of me, to myself. So I'm aware of myself, what's coming up for me. And then I'm
Mhm.
able to be kind of make intentional decisions or, using that word mindful decision to be effective in this moment. And effective obviously is going to be different depending on the context, but I want to be an effective man. So if I'm integrated, I can be effective. If I'm disintegrated, if I'm
Yeah.
disconnected from myself,
Right, disconnected
I'm not
from
gonna be
self,
I can't be
family.
effective,
Right.
right?
No way. No
I'm gonna be
way.
ineffective.
Yeah.
and I'm going to get stuck in maybe some of those things we talked about before, drinking too much or numbing
Mhm.
out or getting frustrated or all these things,
Yeah.
especially as a parent, because we gotta, the call as a dad or a mom is like, we're called to, the image earlier again I talked about is like to perform at a peak level, that this is the playoffs every day, you know.
Mhm.
But the good news is every day is a new day, and we get to heal. Though it's not like the end all. It's like if we lose
Yeah.
this match today, it's not over. We have
Yeah.
tomorrow to really try again, to say, you know what, I dropped the ball, son or daughter or wife or whoever. That wasn't my best version. Let me
Mhm.
own this, take responsibility, heal, integrate together so we're to connected, and then move forward.
Yeah. Yeah.
um
It's
so
good.
that's what I hear. It
Love
really
it.
integrate, it's everything in life. Now, a fun question: what are you currently spinning on your record player? What's your current go-to music right
Oh,
now?
dude. Oh my gosh. I love music. I listen to all types of music. I don't have this vinyl, but I'm really into like EDM right now. I've got this
Okay.
younger friend. He's like 31. And he's turned me into these awesome bands. Like, have you heard of these bands called like Bob Moses? And I'm really into Bob Moses. It's like dance music. It's a lot
Okay.
of it comes out of Europe, but they speak English. Or
Oh,
this
cool.
Rufus Del Sol. Have you heard of
Okay.
this at all?
I know
Oh,
I know them. Yeah, the other guy I don't know, but I've heard of Rufus Del Sol.
yeah,
Yeah.
dude, I'm jamming that a lot,
Okay.
and I do a little
Okay.
like, I got a new truck, and so I got that free Sirius XM sample. So I'm just very excited to say you're looking at the next member of of the Sirius XM membership. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna pay for Sirius XM so I can get that EDM and all that music and all that. No commercials. They got a station on there called Chill. Like
Oh.
chill, it's like kind of like it's called Deep House. My buddy Franklin
Oh.
told me about it. There's like all these different types of dance music. We don't call it techno anymore. So
Yeah.
that's what I listen to all types of rock and country, 90s hip hop, but that's what I'm
Nice.
rocking a lot right now, man.
Okay,
How about you?
cool.
What are you rocking? What are you spinning? Because you told me
Um,
folk music. What are you doing?
yeah. Yeah, currently I think more recently spinning only because I just got to see them live. I bought the repressed vinyl, but it was the 20th anniversary edition of the Postal Service record.
Postal Service, so
Yeah.
clean. That 20
s-
years, that album is incredible.
I know.
They have
And they
what's
just
their
did
big hit
that
off that height?
tour.
What's that big hit? Heights?
I
In the
think such
Heights?
great, yeah, such
Such
great
great
heights.
heights. Oh, such a
Yeah.
great one.
So that's been fun, and getting my kids into it, and like, yeah, so they
Yeah,
love it and they
because
like
they were a
dance to
spinoff
it.
from Death Cab for
Yeah.
Cutie, which has literally like one of the best alternative songs of all time. That one song by Death Cab for Cutie. I forget it, but it was such a
Yeah.
clean listen. That was, yeah.
Yeah, it was a fun show. They did I saw them at Hollywood Bowl a few months back. It was the 20th anniversary of Transatlanticism record, which is the Death
Yeah.
Camp for Cutie album,
Yes.
and then the
Yeah.
Postal Service record. So they did both back to back, the full records from
Oh,
beginning
right.
to end.
Yes.
It was totally reliving like 20 years ago for me, like,
It's
oh, this is
killer.
great. So
Yeah.
that's what
Fun.
I'm listening to, only because it's like, oh yeah, because I just saw him. So that's I'm
Yes.
listening to that. But
Fun.
and it's fun to get and see my kids get into music because they love the
Mm-hmm.
vinyl. They love that. So
Fun.
so final thing is, where can we find you if people want to reach out to Sean and get some parenting coaching?
So yeah, you can find me all over social media as the family coach, and you can find me on my podcast. It's called the Sean Donohue Show. I'm very humbled and honored to say it's normally listed in the top 10 of parenting podcasts in the world. And you can find me on my website, which is either savemyfamily.us or you go to parentingmodernteens.com. And yeah, that's a few ways to find me, and you can learn about the ways I can support you. I got a lot of free stuff out there, and I have a awesome membership that's just totally life changing. And yeah, thanks for asking.
Yeah, no, thank you. And for those listening or watching, all the direct links to Sean's information, his websites, podcast, it's all gonna be clickable at the bottom, so you can easily find it. You don't have to remember that. Just scroll in the description, click on it, take you where you want to go. And yeah, please reach out to him if you need that kind of help. He's doing great work, and
Thank you.
yeah, he'd be happy to help you. So Sean, thank you for your time today, man. And yeah, we'll have to talk soon.
Thanks for having me, Travis. Really, really enjoyed it.